Welcome to it, the myth of the women's bike.
Hi.
Yeah, so we were hoping that this would be less of a us talking at you and kind of a discussion. Happy to lend our expert opinions, but we want to hear yours and hear your questions because this is a really relevant discussion in the industry right now. There's been a lot of changes the last 3 years with manufacturing.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Jessica Bratus. I'm from Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm a full-time bike fitter. I've been fitting for 16 years. Went through most of the fit protocol certification schools that you can go to in North America. But I don't subscribe to any one fit methodology. I've blended them for what works for my clients and what has given me successful results with my clients. And that's a little bit about me and my business. My company is called Fitmi.
Yes.
And Fitmi is a bike fit studio, and I sell custom bikes every once in a while. But my day-to-day from 9 to 6 is fitting bikes all day, every day.
Hi, I'm Victoria Edwards. I am a fitter and the general manager of Befitting Bicycles, which is a fit studio right outside of the city in Wayne, Pennsylvania. And Isaac owns the shop. He's going to speak after me, actually, about saddle pressure mapping. We are friends, and I kind of helped build it with him, and it's been very exciting and fun. I also do not subscribe to one method of fitting. Whenever a client comes into a fit with me, whether it is an anatomical fitting or footbeds or saddle pressure mapping, I try and let everyone know that it is a collaboration between my client and myself. I could say all day, yes, this is the exact perfect position for you and your body, and you could say, no, it is not. So everybody's different, and we kind of, I think, both have that philosophy.
Mm-hmm. And we met each other through Philly Bike Expo.
Yeah.
And our fit studios are kind of almost like sister businesses. So yeah, I consider Befitting Bikes and Fitme are really, we're cousins.
We're doing a lot of the same cool stuff. All right. So
Independent bike fit.
Bike fitting and the myth of the women's bike. Before I even start, why don't we ask the question, what is a woman's bike?
What is a women's bike?
A bike that a woman rides.
I like that answer. That was my first answer that I wrote down when I posed this question. What is a women's bike? A bike that a woman rides. Any other thoughts on that? Specifics? A bike that fits a woman. Okay. What does that mean? I'd say a women's bike is a bike that a woman rides, but it's also a bike that's marketed to women, and that's kind of at the core of this talk. Women's bikes are bikes that are marketed to women, and what does that mean? What do they do? What is specific to that marketing category?
Yeah. How does that magic happen? All right. When we talk about a women's bike,
Making some presumptions.
yeah, we hear the phrase pink and shrink. What does that mean to you? Anything?
Pink and shrink.
The bike is pink and it's smaller than the other bike that a woman uses. All I keep thinking about my banana bike that was pink.
That's a great example. Yeah.
Yep.
What is it, Jess?
So taking a geometry that might actually, be a little more aggressive because it's smaller in its ratio of height and reach, and making it a color that is presumed to be loved by all women, the universal pink. How many times have you gone into a bike store or as on the other end as a retailer, you're helping someone, here are the color options. This is the size that fits you. It's the only thing that comes in a 44 centimeter. It's tiny, but it has to be pink. Oh, and the alternative is black and purple.
Yeah.
which purple's
That's
great.
basically, I mean, the colors are great, but it really symbolizes an add-on.
And a presumption.
We made something, and we made it with full intention, and then we decided to add on and create this other thing based off of this thing, and it's for those other people. Not cool. And it starts young. When
This is
looking
interesting.
at bicycles for my children, I have an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. It's weird. They keep growing. They were learning how to ride a bike, and a lot of the smallest level of bikes for the quote-unquote boys, red, blue, green with stripes, they were in a geometry that helped a low center of mass, center of gravity, and
Easier to balance.
yeah, easier to balance, easier to handle. The girls' bikes all had like Barbies or dolls or stuff on them, a lot of Frozen characters I see, and a basket up top so that they are sitting like they are in a dinner chair and their feet go underneath them. It's very difficult to control a bike like that. It's very difficult to balance. So from the very beginning, we see this divide. And why?
Presumptions.
Yes, that brings us to 2, which is marketing ploy, presumptions.
Yeah.
wanna
Gender
speak-
stereotypes.
Yeah, do you wanna speak
so,
to that a little?
Yeah, presuming that women want to be in a more upright position, or presuming that there aren't an equal amount of men or people who identify as no gender that also want to be in an upright position. So it's really about the position. It's really about the way that you want to be positioned on the bike, and it's very interesting that the industry has, at least from the time that I started, which was about 16 years ago, taught me that women have long legs and short torsos, and therefore they must have a bike that has a short top tube and a tall head tube. And there are equal amounts of people who identify as men or no genders that also need a short top tube and a tall head tube. But the problem is they only come in sizes up to maybe a medium, and that's an issue. And then they also only come in maybe that pink color, which is also an issue. But yeah, from the very beginning, there are compromises. And with those smaller sizes, we can talk about wheels. We'll get into that next. But yeah, I don't want to digress from the flow.
Yes. Yes? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you explain, maybe I should know this, but can you explain what the shorter top tube and the higher head tube that you're talking about?
Yes. So can we just rewind a tiny bit
Yeah.
and say that when we say geometries, we are actually talking about putting your butts back in 11th grade math class. We are talking about the geometry to make the ratio between each tube. They have to move in a certain way. And what happens for the quote-unquote pink and shrink is that it's the same, either it's the same frame, and they say, we're not going to touch the geometry because it's a good geometry, but we're going to put on a shorter stem because women don't have cores that can support them thoroughly, so they need to be closer in. Or what Jess was just kind of pointing at was shorter top tube, higher head tube. That means the space out is brought in and up. So a more relaxed geometry. Did I get?
Yeah. And yeah, we can talk, and stack and reach is exactly the same thing. We're talking about Cartesian graph points, where 0, 0 is the bottom bracket, and we're looking at the vertical and the horizontal to where that head tube, if you're looking at the bike in this direction, handlebars here, the vertical measurement to the center of the bar, or not center of the bar, the top of the head tube, and the horizontal measurement to the center of the head tube. And those are called stack and reach. They're typically measured in millimeters. And it's kind of in the bike, it's kind of the zodiac sign of the bike. It is the meat and potatoes of that bike's geometry. And if you know the stack and reach of a bike and its head tube angle, those 3 numbers, you can plug this into a trigonometry formula. Think back to 11th grade. My math teacher would be so proud if he could see me right now.
I know.
Actually using it.
Hey, if you're watching.
Yeah, it's for you, Mr. Kavanaugh. Yeah, those 3 metrics, you can know exactly how a bike is going to fit someone. You know exactly where that handlebar is going to align because everything else is in X, Y, Cartesian graph coordinates. So those geometry points are just really important. And yeah, that's just the primer for
I think
that.
people outside of the industry don't really see stack and reach much because you're making invisible lines to make it work out in your head. When bikes go mainstream, they start talking about frame size in centimeters or inches, depending on what kind of bike you're getting. And a lot of people will look at standover height because that's something that they're familiar with. But when we talk about geometry, we really are talking stack and reach.
Yep, X, Y coordinates or the triangle, yeah. Oh, can I talk about why it's more important than top tube and head tube?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we used to just look at top tube and head tube. It's like, oh, my top tube is a 52.5 centimeter, and I need a bike with a 52.5 centimeter top tube. But stack and reach really gives you a better idea of how that bike is going to truly fit because you can have 2 bikes, let's just call it 52 for simplicity, 2 bikes with the exact same top tube length, so you have a 52 and a 52, but one bike might have a steeper seat tube angle. And the bike with the steeper seat tube angle, so you think, okay, your bum is further forward, to get the bum in the same spot between these 2 different manufacturers with the same size top tube, the bike with the steeper seat tube is going to end up having a longer reach than the bike with the slacker seat tube angle and the same top tube length. So if you equalize for the saddle position between those 2 different frames, so you establish that relationship that for you is not changing if you're a fully grown adult. So your bum, your hips to pedal relationship should be constant between these 2 bikes. What's the variable? It's the bottom bracket or the pedals forward. And that's why we really hone into stack and reach. Does that make sense? So yeah, if you just look at the top tube length, you can select the bike that maybe has on paper a shorter top tube length. Maybe you have a 52 and a 52.5. But if that 52.5 has a slacker seat tube angle, even though on paper that top tube sounds longer, in effect, when you equalize where your hips to pedal relationship is, that slacker seat tube, longer top tube, is actually going to place the handlebars in a closer position for the same stem length and head tube angle.
I'm about to move on, but can I say something completely unrelated? Thank you all for being here today. I am blown away to see so many people here. And I really hope that you know that we put so much love and care into kind of bringing this information to you. And I'm just stoked that you're allowing me to do it. So thank you.
I'm interested to know what makes people interested in the title of this seminar.
Yeah. Afterwards, we do have a little bit of time for talking down here too. So I'd love to hear kind of what brought you in and say hi to us, okay? All right, but do women actually have shorter torsos? Because that's the presumption, right?
Yes.
We've used that word a few times. These people who are making these bikes are presuming that women have shorter torsos, right?
It's what I was taught back in the day, in 2005 to about, I don't know, maybe the last 6 years ago, all of the marketing literature that employees at bike stores were getting really marketed that, and it's starting to go away from that, but it was very interesting because it put all people who identify as women in a box together, and it's very interesting. And on the opposite end of that, when you measure a person who might have a long torso and and shorter legs. I call them torso biased. They might very well fit better on a quote women's geometry, but they get measured and they say, oh, so you're a woman with a long torso. Let's put you on this. You don't need a women's bike. You need a men's bike. Yeah. And then they get sold this bike that doesn't fit them, and it's a position that's more aggressive than they intended. And it goes back to really the position and not body measurements. You can't base a bike fit or even a geometry solely off of body measurements, because there's so much more to the bike's position or your position. You are not measurements, you are a position. And so that, I just wanted to touch base on that, because I see that all the time. And
yes.
And that person might have been better on a shorter reach, higher stack bike.
Based on the Dreyfus Human Scale, the most ergonomic data displayed that there's no statistical difference between women's and men's limb length.
Whoa!
What? There is no measurement that is different that affects bike fit. And that's just, Lee Prescott, who's an expert in ergonomics at Velo Atelier. And to bring it even further in, he says a bunch of other things in this fantastic article that I poured over. But the synopsis really is that there are more differences in height, size, and mobility. We'll say flexibility and mobility are gonna kind of marry in this one. More range there than the differences between men and women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why are we making a bike that's called the women's bike? Why don't we make a bike that can be changed in the touch points for the ride that you need?
It really comes down to the touch points.
I don't remember my next slide, so. Oh. Yeah. Hybrid for men, hybrid for ladies. So remember, we are shortening that top tube, or that effective top tube, because we have it as a step through for our skirts.
Because you always ride in dresses.
Well, yes.
Lest we forget the petticoats.
Right. By the way, I love a step through for mobility in the hip. If we're having any hip problems, I love to see that available. But this is not what I want.
That's not a true low step either. And thank goodness, starting now, they're starting to have low step frames that come in sizes that would be appropriate for a 6-foot tall rider.
Yes.
That was always an issue. I have a client who has a hip replacement. They need something with a really low step bar, but because we're presuming that women are the ones that need the low step bar, and all women top out at 5'6", right? We don't need any large frames. It was really hard to find those bikes for people with hip mobility issues. And
That's not true. I was just looking at e-bikes.
Yeah, e-bikes now.
Come in a big range.
It's changed. Yeah. So that was in the past. Now it's different. So now there are taller bikes offered in truly low step frames. Huge in the e-bike market, in the e-bike category. Specialized Roll is a really good example. I bought one for my stepfather, and he loves it, and he is 6'1".
Cannondale Treadwell also does a very good job. Yes.
Just a quick question for him that I want answered is, structurally, are low-step bicycles versus the traditional bar structurally equal?
Not equal. Not equal.
Which, is there a better or less,
Yeah, the one on the left is better. The one on the left.
Yeah, because of the triangle.
Yeah, because of the triangle. So it is a stronger, stiffer triangle laterally. When you have a bar that low, and this is actually something that I've been working with the manufacturer Waterford. There's Richard Schwinn, who we all know and love. He has to use a special tube. So if you took the same tubing on the one on the left and just applied that to the right, you'd have a really flexy frame and you'd have some strength compromises. So what you have to do is take the seat tube, and he calls the seat tube that Waterford and Gunner use, he calls it the Tower of Power. And it's a really oversized tube. It's much heavier than the other tubes, so you also are getting a heavier frame, but it does compromise the strength. So hence the Tower of Power. Remember that.
It also, I will call on you, Happy, but let me just say one thing. It also, again, pushes us further back onto the sit bones. So here, we are on the saddle and we roll forward onto the pubic rami, and we have some core stability, and we have our handlebars.
That bike doesn't look very comfortable to me, though.
I don't like it. I don't like it. But the shaping of it, that's essentially what we're talking about. Over here, we're getting pushed so far back because the handles are so far up that we are now relying on not our glutes, which are the powerhouse of cycling, but quads. It's like sitting at your desk and you have a little, what are those called? When you have the pedals under your desk.
Oh yeah, a desk bike.
Oh, a desk bike. There we go. It's got that feeling. It's more tiring. It's very fun. Like, I love going to the beach and I cruise on them because they are cruisers, and you're just bopping around. But when I want to go on a bike ride, an adventure, or be out and be doing things on my bike, I need to be able to control the bike. And you just don't get control with a cruiser geometry. Should I move on?
Yeah.
All right.
If you're side-eyeing me.
Don't worry. I'm not saying we need less diversity in the bike industry. I'm not saying forget about women.
It's a polarizing issue, the disappearance of the women's bike category, right?
Yeah.
Where'd they go? And for a lot of us, we're like, well, we feel like we were shorted. Like now,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
We had something for us, guys.
Yeah.
Why did we ruin it? No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I am saying that I want the average bicycle to be adaptable. I want to be able to take a frame that can be for he, she, they, and put the components on it that will help it be the bicycle that it needs to be for the way that person rides and the way that person is positioned.
Stem saddle handlebars.
Yes.
What about the cranks?
And crank. But that's, it's expensive, right? It's
also more important than most of the other things you mentioned.
agreed. Well, yeah. It depends. Yeah.
I have problems on clipping.
It depends on the individual.
The cranks are so wide I can't twist my hip to.
Race face makes it really good.
Yeah, so it really depends on the individual. Yeah, but crank arm length, super expensive, super important,
Yeah.
not so easy to change, right?
Expensive is because the industry as a whole decided that everybody can ride a 165 or 170 or 175 millimeter crank, and that's not correct.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
it's so far off that, I wonder why they're still in business.
The industry?
Yeah, I used to use TA cranks typically because I could get them down as short as 140 millimeters.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah, it's hard to find that size.
Yes, but that's, from a manufacturing standpoint, it's that touch point is a really hard one to,
We get into bottom bracket compatibility, which is its own battle that I won't even touch on.
that could be another seminar.
Yeah. What if instead of having a women's bike section, there was an accessible touch point section? Someone, no matter their gender, no matter what else other than their position You know, what if they could go in and say, yes, I do need the shorter crank arm and the shorter stem, but the longer top tube? What if we had that sort of availability? I don't know if it's possible. I don't.
Yeah, so that's the challenge, is creating something that is accessible economically, because the other aspect of it is, you know, if we're making it has to come out of the box from the factory with one thing, right? Manufacturers are trying to get as few SKUs as possible. So one dilemma in the disappearance of the women's category bike is handlebar size, stem length, saddles. And so in one sense, you have a community or a subset of the market that has to pay extra to get those touch points, right? So that's kind of that's a nuanced argument. It's a challenge. But the only thing that I can say at this point, as a fitter who is dealing with bikes that are primarily produced overseas in Taiwan and China, you don't really get to choose those touch points. Those touch points right now are not that accessible. The manufacturers choose, you get what you get, and then you have to spend a ton of money to change your stem, saddle, and handlebar. But as a fitter, again, working with those manufacturers, it's like you just have to presume that when you get a bike that you might not have, you know, you're probably gonna throw that saddle right away. You're gonna give it to your worst enemy, and you're going to go to your bike fitter, you're going to spend $300, and then you're going to spend another $300 on a stem and a handlebar and a saddle. And then maybe another $300 or $400 on shorter cranks. So it's a little bit of a logistical dilemma. If bikes had more accessible touch points, and if they were perhaps manufactured domestically, you'd have more control over that process and be able to have the bike come as it should. But it's just we're not there yet. Yeah.
So these are bikes that cost like thousands and thousands of dollars. Do they automatically have the adaptability for the touch points, or they still fit into this category even if they cost that much money?
So
It's even worse for the higher end bikes.
let's talk about an S-Works. Can we talk about an S-Works
Or an
tarmac?
integrated stem bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the higher end bikes now are almost across the board coming with a stem and a handlebar that are connected together.
You can't change one.
And the
without
cables
other.
go through those bars. So it's even less accessible, kind of moving in the opposite direction of where, you know, optimization of ergonomics should be headed from a fit perspective. Because for the majority of people who get that bike, what are the chances that you're going to need that bar and that stem at that pitch, at that height, at that length?
The lottery.
It really is. And then to change it, you have to uncable the bike, or if it has electronic cables or electronic wires, that's a little bit better, but you still have hydraulic lines that you have to run through the whole frame. So you're looking at about $175 labor charge on top of downgrading your bars maybe, because your handlebar and stem was maybe $600 retail, and now you have to put another handlebar and stem, and you don't want it to be less nice than what came on your bike and more expensive. So
and that's even if it's compatible. There are plenty of bikes that come in and I say, I'm sorry, I cannot change that for you. They do not make what you need.
Oh yeah.
And I can't get it from anywhere else. Like if Specialized doesn't make it in the way that you need it, well then I can't use any other company.
Proprietary stem we're talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
because it's proprietary, meaning that company made it a specific way that no one else does.
So to that point, we would say, if you're thinking about getting a bike that comes with an integrated front end or an integrated cockpit ever, do see your fitter, your trusted fitter, prior to purchasing that $3,000 to $12,000 bike that might have just been the wrong bike for you.
I've never seen one of these really expensive
expensive bikes? Am I just looking in the wrong place, or are they still pretty uncommon? So give me an example of a bike that has this integrated stem and handle.
Have you Canyon? Anything in the high end now from Trek, giant, specialized. If you look at even the more like the less racy bikes, the more endurance style bikes that you'd want to, you would presume that category would stick in the more adjustable sphere. Something like the highest end Trek Domani, I think it has a integrated bar and stem combination. So that's Trek's endurance bike, more upright road bike position, can take a 38 millimeter tire, so big tire volume clearance. And that bike in the carbon flavor probably starts around 2,800 and tops out at 12,000. But yeah, it's just in the high end category. I have clients who are maybe they're 60 plus and they want to get this $12,000 bike, but every single option has a bar stem that is not going to work for them because maybe they need a stem that is plus 6 degrees instead of negative 6 degrees. And that stem length, that plus or minus 6 degrees, makes about a 21 millimeter difference at 100 millimeter length, stem length. So if you just flip your stem, if it's 100, yeah, if it's 100 millimeters, like 10 centimeter stem, you take that sucker, flip it up, it's like an inch different. That's a lot. That's the difference between a frame size. That's more than a difference between a frame size in the true measurement of the height of a frame. So huge difference in going from just that small change, but with the integrated bar and stem, you just can't do it.
Yeah. Let's see. 7 cycles.
Ooh.
You have a little bit of a connection with them, do you?
I do.
Jess works and brings 7 cycles.
I have a retail alliance with
Yeah.
them, a retail
Brings
partner
7 cycles to the masses.
of Southeast Michigan.
Yeah. And they say, we don't build women's bikes. We build one bike.
Ooh, hot take.
Yours. Hey.
Yes, they're just trying to be controversial.
Right. But there's someone in this room, actually, that I quoted as well. And he might be in the back, right over there. Hey, Happy.
Happy Friedman, the one and only
Yes.
bike fitter extraordinaire.
And he reminds me all the time, there's only 2 kinds of bikes. One that fits and one that doesn't.
Happyism, that's a good one.
Yeah, we're going to talk about wheels.
Oh, that's the best.
So in the 90s, the UCI decided that we're going to have 700C wheels. Nothing else.
What
Yes,
does 700C even mean? Is it 700 centimeters? Is it 700 millimeters? Is there anything on a 700C wheel that measures 700? No. No.
It's another
It's arbitrary.
It's another cute bicycle term that we're not always sure, like, I don't know what that is, but just keep using it.
It's kind of like the imperial system.
It is like the imperial system. During COVID times, please stay 2 dolphin lengths away. What? I saw that at the beach.
It's good. So in talking about wheel size and compromising frame handling, geometry, center of mass, center of gravity, for those smaller size frames, you'd really want a proportionate size wheel. So the very first thing that I mentioned about bikes getting smaller, when you shrink them, often the smaller size bikes are longer per size than a larger bike. So example with numbers, a 56 centimeter bike might have a 56 centimeter top tube. Oops, I'm saying top tube instead of reach. But you might have a 44 centimeter bike that has a 51 centimeter top tube. So the ratios as the bikes get smaller and smaller in frame size really kind of get more aggressive or more stretched out in the position. So they're not equal in their size and scale going down. Yeah. So to keep things, because you have to work around these 700C wheels, you can only get the wheels so close before things get really funky with handling, and you might run into mega toe overlap, which for most people, yeah, not fun. You can handle a little bit of toe overlap sometimes, but if it's half the length of your foot, that's not going to work. That's not going to work.
It's not.
Yeah, and forks, fork offset. We could talk about that,
Yes.
but we won't
Let's
yet.
say that I ride a very small bicycle. I'm wearing tall pants and I'm wearing tall shoes, but I'm a small person. So I ride a very small bicycle. And it was actually the last PBE that we had. A wonderful person by the name of Anna Schwinn had a conversation with me and a wonderful person named Ann Barnes. And we talked, hi Ann. And we talked a little bit about bringing the 650C wheel back. Yeah, I see a thumbs up, yes.
Yeah.
The 650C wheel was very popular. And actually popular up to size 56 centimeter bikes. But the 90s came around, everybody ditched their 650Cs. The last people to make them, I think, were Envy, and that was a few moons ago, and certainly not Disc.
I'm still seeing some triathlon bikes with the 60Cs.
That's the last, yeah, so that is actually the last discipline
Okay.
that keeps the 650C.
650C
in
holdouts.
some- Yeah, in some brands.
But they're probably not Disc.
No.
Yeah.
No. Smaller wheel for riders, approximately 5'4" and under. That's the best way to get control over your ride.
And scale the handling characteristics of the bike. You put a really big wheel on a tiny frame, you get something called wheel flop. So there's another aspect of this, and that's the fork offset. For smaller frame sizes, we should have fork offsets that are available to us that are greater, so more fork offset to get similar trail numbers, which really doesn't totally dictate the handling and steering of the bike, but it's a really important aspect of it. Trail is the measurement that results in between the fork offset and the line of the head tube angle. And that has a lot to do with if your bike is going to feel like it has a floppy front wheel, steering, handling at high speeds, feeling stable downhill. So a lot of times the smaller frames get a compromise in the handling and stability due to not having the offering of more fork offset. There's a couple manufacturers that do a really good job with maintaining trail numbers throughout the size lines, scaling things. I think Cannondale is known for that. Yeah, that's the only one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you talk about the 650C wheel size, are you referring to just doing the front wheel similar to like an old carry bike, or you're doing both?
Both wheels, yeah.
Yeah. We want to bring the wheel size smaller so that we can bring them closer. Or we can keep them further apart but have better handling. Karen Hartley, the amazing frame builder of Hartley and of Eisen Workshops, she made herself 2 identical bicycles.
Ooh, I like this.
2 identical bicycles that one was made for 700C wheels and the other one was made for 650C wheels. She rode both of them and she said, honestly, the 650C wheel bike is the best bike I've ever had. It was.
What size was the frame?
Yeah, and what size is she? Or how tall is she and what is her
so
frame?
She rides between a 52 and a 54, typically. And she, of course, she didn't say what size that bike was because I'm sure it's so custom that
It's not a size.
It's not a size. It's a position holder.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused, sorry, because I've got a bike with 650B wheels, and Surly has started making.
Yes.
650B is, and it's actually up there. It's basically 27-inch,
Yeah.
27 and a half.
You forgot the B. Are people starting to not use the B when they talk about those 650 wheels? Because I've always said 650B.
Well, you're asking the wrong person because
I think it's just a typo. I think it's
Yeah.
just a typo. I just left out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But typically we do say 650B.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these two similar bikes, basically she rode both of them. She thought that the one with the 650C wheels was snappier, easier to handle, accelerated and decelerated more the way that she wanted. So the responsiveness was better. She said that the 700C wheels, had she never known the 650, she would have loved it. But she noticed it's more sluggish. It's not quite as nimble. It doesn't feel like it moves with her. And when we talk about cycling, that's what we all want.
Want that bike to feel like it's an extension of your body, right?
That you're not riding a bicycle, you are flying, just kind of close to the ground.
So yeah, 650C is smaller than 650B, and the challenge with 650B wheels is that they typically are paired with a bigger tire. So the effective size, even though 650B is a nice solution to provide a smaller wheel size and get more tire clearance, in effect, the outer diameter often becomes very close to a 700C wheel, if not the same. And it's hard to find a 650B tire that is maybe as race-worthy in volume, tiny. But I mean,
Call it
tires should be bigger anyway, right? They should
I
be
call
bigger.
it ice skating.
Oh,
when
yeah.
the tire is a little bit too big for what I'm riding it for.
You mean wheel or tire?
When the tire's too big for the wheel,
Yeah.
for what I'm riding
Oh,
it
yeah.
for.
Yeah.
It's like ice skating around.
Yeah. On the opposite end, though, on a 650B, yeah, if you're like trying to make a race bike with a 650B, it's hard to find anything less than a 28 millimeter tire. But a 28 millimeter tire is plenty fast.
It's fast.
Maybe faster. Probably
mean,
faster.
Faster, according to
Definitely
It's
fast.
faster than 23.
Yeah,
That we know.
that we know.
And then if men had to ride bikes that were as badly handling as a small frame with big wheels, they just wouldn't. There'd be a massive outcry. That is, again, a wonderful person named Anna Schwinn. And this was not in our conversation. This was actually when I started poring over what is it with frame geometry. And this is an article that I just loved every bit of it. I almost wanted to just post the entire article and say, read this instead. But basically, we talk about someone who fits a 56 with a 100 millimeter stem, about 6 or 8 degrees down, on 700C wheels. That is the ideal riding experience. We are trying to take that and make it happen at these other ends, but something always has to give.
What were those dimensions again, you said? Those numbers you said?
Like a 56
Someone who fits
frame.
a 56 road bike with a 100 millimeter stem.
Or 110 if you're Richard Schwinn.
Yeah.
Richard Schwinn says that the ideal stem length for all bikes is 110 millimeters, and that is the ideal, that will produce the ideal handling
Yes.
for the bikes. Just putting that out there.
But yes, 100, 110, about 6 degrees down, 6 to 8.
So negative 6 degrees or 84 degrees down.
Yeah. So.
With not a lot of headset spacers. Got to
Yeah.
add that on there.
Oh, yeah.
No more than 20 millimeters of headset spacers.
With a 1725 crank.
Yeah.
And of course, carbon wheels.
That thing. I call that the tickler.
Did you think that we weren't going to mention saddles? I don't know if you're here because of saddles, but
Should bikes even come with saddles?
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
I'm not sure.
So
I should have a placeholder for a saddle, which is what it comes with currently, is
it's
typically a
just
placeholder for a saddle.
yeah, people just think that they can ride it and then they get majorly hurt. Ooh.
Or not. Yeah, or sometimes it just works, but it could be better.
Yeah. We're going to talk about saddles. Has anyone seen the commercial, and please actually raise your hand if you've seen it, of Ali Tetrick talking about the new specialized mimic saddles?
I haven't.
No? Oh, it was so fun. I saw it all over Instagram a few years ago. And they tested these saddles the way that you test prosthetics. Basically, they had women put lipstick on their parts, their clitoris, labia, ass, and sit on clear saddles. And with the clear saddles, it would leave an imprint on where everything was. They realized that a good proportion of women who are rocking a big cutout in the middle, yeah, you're getting sucked right in.
So the genitals are protruding through the saddle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why they created the mimic, because it acts like a hammock for everything. There's different foam densities, blah, blah, blah. Ali Tetrick went on with Specialized, because she's a Specialized baby, and she made a commercial where she tries to say that this saddle is good for your, and every time she tries to say an iteration of vagina or vulva, someone yells out or something crashes or something, and they thought it was very cute, so I let them know it would be even better if at the end they said vulva.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So what about that saddle? What about that infinity saddle?
Oh, well, why don't you tell them what it is? Maybe they've never seen it. What is that?
Have you seen the saddle? Yeah. Does anyone like it? Does anyone ride it? So it can work. So what are you supporting with that saddle? Where are you going to feel the pressure? So if you're thinking about a set amount of mass and pressure, and then you are just distributing it to the part that is being supportive, you're going to be getting a lot of pressure on what little of the saddle there is to sit on with that. So it can, that particular saddle can actually, for long distance riders, damage nerves, produce bruising in a really serious way, just where the support is.
So the reason I included saddles, while it's a touch point and not part of the bike geometry, I wanted to talk about it because it is a great example of what goes into, remember when I said in the beginning, like, we're making this thing and it's great. Oh, and like this can be sort of like that thing, but we're just gonna change it a little bit and it'll be fine. That's how saddle testing is. Jess.
There's a disparity.
Yes, I'm putting you on the spot. Can you give me an example of anything that a major company has done to create a new saddle?
You mean to address the disparity?
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure in the women, for women's saddles, I'm not sure because it's been so long. All of the medical testing is focused on men's penile health and blood flow, and there's not much maybe until now. Is there anything now?
I've seen like a few half-hearted articles.
Yeah.
But I'm asking Jess because she's been fitting for 16 years,
There's
guys.
decades of studies for men's pelvic floor health, men's penile health, blood flow, pressure mapping, pudendal nerves, and arteries for men's genitalia, and as it pertains to the saddle.
And
But for women's saddles,
we got lipstick on labia.
yeah, we have, because we could put some baby powder on the top of the saddle and then see, you know, where you're sitting on it. But what's going on with the anatomy? Ann Barnes in the back, she's the one to answer that question.
Yeah. You don't
And the
have to
answer
right
is-
now, but you can.
I'm sorry, can you
The,
repeat the question?
you repeat the question. So scientific studies or data out there that looks at blood flow similarly as we have with men's saddles throughout the decades.
We were
Because
just talking about that this morning.
Yeah.
It might be you. There's very little, and the data sample is not big.
right,
So
huge disparity.
unfortunately, those studies get turned into marketing programs.
Right,
Doesn't that sound great?
yeah,
We have a commercial, guys.
yeah.
Yeah, Happy.
My argument is we've got 40 years of bad science on the men's side versus no years of no science on the women's side.
40 years of bad
Perfect.
science on the men's side and no years of no science for the women's side. Well said.
I
yeah.
love it. This is what it boils down to for me. I'm not going to get into frame building, guys. I know that you're disappointed because it would be awesome, but no, I'm gonna continue doing my job, which is bike fitting. And I want my tools to be better. I want what you get to be better before I touch it. If that doesn't happen, I'm still going to be doing what I do. And I'm still going to be helping you get into a comfortable position, optimize, get better times. That's still my job at the end of the day. And I don't care if you are a woman, I don't care if you are a man, I don't care if you do not identify as either, I don't care if you are they, I don't care if you're a dinosaur. I will give you what is best for you.
Yeah, and so I think the hot take for this seminar is that, you know, the myth of the women's bike. So we don't, you know, women's bikes are disappearing, the marketing, and we're kind of supportive of that in the gendered marketing of bikes. It really should be marketed by the position. Mm-hmm. This is the position that is achievable with this bicycle. Does that fit the way that you ride? Does that fit your body and how you see and your riding style? And is that appropriate for you? So there are a lot of challenges because of the touch points and the economical disparity of, you know, having to change that saddle, that stem, those bars. But so long as things are proportional to the bike size, so if you're looking at a 56 bike, it's going to have a wider bar. If you're looking at a 49 centimeter bike, it's going to have a narrower bar. And unfortunately, you just have to presume that nothing will work. Unless you do your homework beforehand and get a sizing, determine those touch points. And if you're getting an integrated cockpit, you want to be darn sure that those touch points are going to work for you, or you are okay with completely reconfiguring the bike. But yeah, it really should be about the position and not pinking and shrinking.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can I get all of your pictures real quick? I'm just gonna and by me I mean
A
you.
pano?
I don't or a
sure.
video.
Just a
Like,
quick
I just want to see
a seminar.
I want to see
this guy's got a
later.
camera. So there's probably some opinions, and some people are a little upset about the women's bike category going away. Does anyone have anything that they want to say or any feelings?
I think you missed one critical part.
Sure.
That's educating those teeny boppers who work in bike shops.
Yes.
And at least when you said women's bikes, they were aware that maybe women have different concerns. And they just don't have to measure their leg length and shove them on a bike. Because I sell bikes that nonprofits use to people who come in because the bike they bought at the bike shop, oh, they just measured me. They said I need a 54 and I'm not comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to That's
So-
marketing too, so that helped a little bit, but obviously it's not the solution.
I certainly see that across the board, men and women.
Right, yeah, I was
who
gonna
come
say,
to me with
yeah.
woefully
Yeah.
unhelpable. I've had people actually leave a fit appointment, sell their bike immediately, and get a new one because it was 2 sizes off. There wasn't any fitting I could do to change it. I think just more bike shops need to be aware of bike fit.
But there's still a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of challenges with what is available out there in terms of manufacturing and parts, forks, wheels for smaller riders. That's really like men, women, non-binary folks. Like it's smaller riders. It's a challenge to have something that's scaled and equal in terms of good handling as something in the medium or large size. So those, I think, where those special concerns come out. Yeah.
This fellow had his hand up first, and then we're going to come to you.
What percentage of the adult population in the U.S. do you feel that can find a bicycle that actually fits them?
What percentage? I mean,
That's a tricky question.
there's 100%. There's always custom. You mean non-custom?
Out of the box, from a manufacturer.
With all the parts, so my question, with all the parts that come stock?
Out of the box, it'll fit them.
Out of the box, that will fit them. Ooh, without any changes.
Or minimal changes.
That's hard to say.
Yeah.
How many of those people don't know that it doesn't fit?
Right, okay, that has
Right.
always been the issue. I've been involved in this since the 70s. 50% of the adult population can find a bicycle that fits them.
I'd say it's
Where's
I'd
your
say it's
number?
less
Yeah.
for out of the box.
Yeah,
I mean, with the touch points. Again, it's like winning the lottery. The stem and the bar and the everything that comes on that bike. If it's you don't have to change a darn thing.
Not a perfect fit, an acceptable fit. 50%.
See, that doesn't really exist in my mind.
Well,
So
I get that. I've been doing fittings since the 70s as well because I started out building custom bicycles.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna ask, how much does a bike fitting cost?
Depends on where you are, but I'd say that like
Like in this area,
yeah. So I'm presuming around $350. Is that pretty?
that's where we start, is $350. And then if we want to do more, because there is always the ability to do more, like saddle pressure mapping or custom footbeds, that's then additional. We kind of try and group them together for cost benefit, but the fit itself is $350.
300 if you're in Southeast Michigan. I'm cheap. I'm too cheap. But
You need to raise your prices, Jess.
I guess so. I'm booked 6 months out, so I think that means that you have to raise the price.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anyone have anything else that you wanna know? Yeah? Huh? Yeah? Maybe? What's up?
Women's bikes.
We need to fight the bike manufacturers about, doing the changes.
Pardon?
We need to fight the bike manufacturers, to make changes.
I agree. I agree.
Like for 650C, like the only thing you really get is like a, in a 28 is like a Stella, make that kind of racer, and that's it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Fine. Yep.
Probably outside it too.
Exactly.
The 650C isn't even small enough for somebody, say, 5'4".
That's true. Well, no. Well, no. Well, yeah, that 5'4" probably good. You're probably good. Yeah. 650C is fine for that.
That's the truth of it, is if you get a bicycle that's with a wheel that the person can't straddle, they're not going to be able to build a bicycle that'll fit that wheel and that person.
5'4" is.
Which is,
I'm 5'2" and I can straddle a 700C wheel.
Oh yeah.
okay.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is most top tubes are going to be 3 inches higher than that because you have to have a tube.
Okay, I think we're kind of
Yeah. Getting off.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
want to
well,
hear from other people who want to be a part of this too.
Yeah.
For bike fitting, it sounds like it would be helpful to come in even prior to owning a bike to kind of get measured and does that.
Yeah.
I guess we're in the process with that help and fall. So, like let's say I come in to get a bike fitting, is it that involves doing like measurements?
Yeah, so most fitters will offer something like a pre-purchase sizing, or they have a whole fitting, and then they'll on their full fit on their size cycle, and then give you a prescription, or they'll give you data points, and then bike solutions that meet those data points, if that's specifically what you're going for. In my business, I call it a pre-purchase sizing, and I presume that there's going to be a lot of changes. So for me, it's more of a macro versus a micro. Like I presume that the handlebar might be a centimeter different, like it might be the right width, but the reach of the handlebar is 80 millimeters instead of 70 millimeters. So the number that I have for your handlebar XY could vary by a centimeter in either direction, but you're gonna get on the right frame size. So the sizing is super important. Yeah, but you can really get specific. Yeah, and I would give you, actual bike options that fit, and then you can extrapolate if there's things that are not on that list. You can say, here's my stack target, here's my reach target for a given stem input and a given handlebar input. And these are all the bikes that would achieve that position, that share that stack and reach.
We do it similarly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you briefly mentioned that sizing for small riders is difficult as well. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that and on perhaps manufacturers that offer smaller frames, and also what kind of physiological issues does one develop?
Such a good question.
Wow, that is a talk, baby.
That's so good. Yeah. So were you here for the beginning part, like about, okay, so just quick prime, like recap super fast, 30 seconds or less. So smaller frames.
Up the beginning. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Smaller frames typically should have smaller wheels so that so everything can stay in proportion. The trail of the bike, the rise and the run of the bike. But because it doesn't exist yet. So we're on wheels that are larger than the frame perhaps ought to have. So you have to stretch it out longer. So physiologically, you might have things like neck impingement. You might have a numb arm from nerve impingement in the neck and the cervical spine, craning the neck, perhaps shoulders, upper traps, upper body issues as a result of being too stretched out, also lower back. Also, less stability on the bike overall because you can't, harness the strength from your pelvic girdle to stabilize your body.
About, soft tissue pressure.
Oh,
That's huge.
Big time. So so many people.
Far, we've got a lot of soft tissue pressure.
Yeah. So anterior pelvic pressure or genital discomfort from being too stretched out because you're sitting really on the front bits of the pelvis instead of something balanced front to back. Some manufacturers that use it though, that do. So Canyon makes bikes that are smaller and puts smaller wheels on them, and I'm so stoked about that. It's really, really cool. But another point that is not totally relevant, but kind of relevant, Liv and Giant. So Liv is a women-specific manufacturer, and so they are marketing to women, and they do make smaller frame sizes. But when you look at the geometry of, say, a medium-sized Liv, if you look at Giant's geometry, so if I'm doing a sizing and somebody perhaps needs a taller stack and a shorter reach, and I'm looking at all of the geometries, the Giant, a Vail, has a taller stack and shorter reach than any of the Liv bikes that are marketed to women. So a lot of times I'm recommending the quote unquote marketed to men's bike for a woman identifying rider who needs that geometry, and it's very interesting. It's like so one could say the men's bike is more women's fit than the women's bike. Yeah.
Short of it is stack and reach are numbers that basically we figure out what you need, stack and reach, up and out. Yeah. And from there we look at individual bikes. Yeah. Anything else? Oh,
You're a position,
We're
not
gonna
a
go.
size. So there's nothing in a size.
we're gonna go
Yeah.
blue.
So really quickly, are we better off buying a frame?
Ooh, I don't know though. I don't know. I still think
All day.
nope. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think even changing the stem bars and saddle, even seat post,
Yeah.
the OE pricing. So the original equipment pricing that manufacturers get is so much less than wholesale. So you still get a really like a cost benefit economically in the drivetrain, the shifters, bottom bracket, tires, wheels, everything
True.
as a package. It's like you could take a Honda Accord and build it, piece by piece, and now it's a Ferrari price. But
I like frame and components only because I usually do end up changing things a lot. And so it
ideally
makes more sense.
Yeah.
But
Economically, it is still better.
economically, amending the stock is probably better.
It would be cool if there was like a part swap, just
Yeah.
kind of an online community of there was really easy to just say, my bike came with 100 millimeter
I talked to
stem.
Holly about that.
Yeah.
They said, that's a great idea. Maybe someone will do it.
That's the next business venture. So all of these OE parts, if there was just a C where they could all go and then, be swapped for people who actually need them.
Flannel.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I just kind of talking about like the 56 with like a 110 like backyard dual riding bike. Do you guys notice that as you get to like the smaller riders, that things like seat angle and head angle will be the same as that bike, or do you find that maybe they need steeper, different positions to kind of create their power? It's like as a smaller rider, like does the proportions of the bike alter? How do they alter?
The proportions have to move.
Yeah, the
We
angles
can't-
have to move.
We can't just make the tubes shorter, otherwise it won't work. So all of those shift. You'll see like what Jess was saying before about basically the ratio being different. You'll see that in wheelbase as well. You'll see that in top tube. You'll see that in wheelbase. And then you'll see the shifting of the front and the back to try and control those wheels.
So often super small sizes have a longer reach. If you look at stack and reach, like a 48 might actually have a longer reach than the 51. And that's because, but then the top tube is shorter, and that's, with smaller frame sizes, they're almost always making the seat tube angle steeper, and the top tube, that's how they're shortening the top tube, instead of making it truly shorter from the reach due to the constraint of the wheel size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are 10 minutes over, so I'm going to say thank you all for being here, and we're done. You may go forth.
Thank you so much. Thanks for you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks